Welcome everybody to my brand new refreshed Figma Crash Course. Now, as many of you know, I love teaching by example, which is why you're going to learn exactly how to build this website right here in all of its glory. Now, there's a ton of info packed into this crash course, and it's not just about teaching design, but also Figma as a tool itself. Now, a few of the Figma things you're going to learn how to tackle in this crash course are responsive design, components, component variants, auto layout, constraints, prototyping, the grid, and so much more. And if you're interested in learning more about UI/UX, definitely check out DesignCourse.com, where you can take my interactive UI/UX course along with my newly launched interactive CSS course. Now, before we begin, this video is sponsored by an awesome hosting company, Hostinger.com. They offer hosting plans for every size business imaginable, and especially for people like you who are just starting out. And trust me, if you are just starting out, you definitely need your own domain, your own website, which is where Hostinger comes in. And later on in this video, I'm going to show you how to deploy a website with Hostinger, so make sure you check the timestamps. Now, while they always have awesome deals that you can definitely take advantage of, definitely check out the YouTube description for that. This is their Black Friday sale right now. You can get their all-in-one hosting plan for just $249 per month. Yes, $2.49 per month. It also includes up to $80 off of 4-year hosting plans, free domains, free email, unlimited free SSL and DDoS protection. And with my exclusive coupon code DesignCourse, you can get an additional 10% off. All right, let's get started. All right, so I have a new design file here in Figma. Before we begin, I'm gonna go ahead and just do a very quick overview of the UI. Up here, we can see that we have several different tools. This is just like a move and select tool. We have the frame tool right here. This is how you create your actual canvases or your layouts to start designing within. Over here, this is just some shape tools and a drop down. We have the pen tool. We're not really gonna be messing around with the pen tool. It's just for you basically to draw shapes. We have the type tool here. Over here is kind of an area where we have, if we click on it, it's set up in tabs where we can see there's components. You can browse plugins and widgets. And this hand tool allows you to move. I'll show you how to use that. And a comment tool. And this is for leaving comments so that other people can, basically communicate with each other based on a given design if you have stakeholders and all that stuff. Over here is a panel where you have layers. You also have assets where you can access things like your components, which we'll talk about. Over here, if we just click here, we could change the title of the document. I'm gonna call this Couply. This is gonna be the name of our fictional business. Over here, we have this panel. And as you can see, you can export things. There's local styles, background. This is your property inspector. And basically, depending on what you have selected over here in terms of your design elements, it's going to show up a bunch of different properties. Over here is a prototype tab. So if I click on this, this is for prototyping, basically adding interactivity to your design mockup. So like if somebody clicks a button, it takes them to a new page, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's an inspect element. We're not gonna use this. It does spit out some CSS code, but I pretty much never use that. So finally, one more thing up here. You can click play up here to play the prototype if you have interactivity. You can also share it with other people, and then this is the current users. It could show more users right here if you've invited people to the document itself. So enough of that crap. Let's go ahead and get started. So very first thing is a frame. We have to create a frame or a layout. So if we click that and select back to the design tab, you'll see over here in the property inspector, it's changed based on the fact that we selected the frame tool. And we have a desktop, and these are just preset basically dimensions that you can use. Now, I always start with a desktop of 1440 by 1024. So if I click that, we get this big white bright screen. And essentially, I usually just kind of push it up. And what we can do now is we can add a grid, a layout grid right here. So with that selected to the left, but by the way you select it is just to select right up here where it says the name. You would choose layout grid, you click plus, and we want to change it from grid to a column. All right, and then from column, typically on a desktop you use 12 columns. and we give ourselves a little bit of margin. So I'm going to use like 120 pixels on the left and right side of the margin. Now if I hit, if I zoom back out, you'll see this is what it basically should look like. Now we're not actually going to use the margins here, or not the margins, but the columns. I'm only looking at right now the space from here to there, and as well as from here to there, because when it comes to good design, we want to make sure things are aligned properly. And so we have equal what's called white space or negative space on the very left and right of the design here on desktop. We're also going to give this a specific background color. By the way, Shift G will allow us to toggle on and off that grid view, because that's what we're going to be doing. And then also, I kind of went ahead of myself. To zoom out, you hold Control and then use your mouse scroll wheel. All right, Control or Command on Mac. And then if you want to have this little drag around situation, this little hand tool, you just hold the space bar. All right, so those two things I use a lot. All right, let's go ahead and create, while we're here, click F or click up there for the frame tool. Go ahead and create a tablet version. So we're just going to use iPad Pro 12.9. That's going to be over here because we're going to design for that. And then also the frame tool again, hit F. We're going to go to phone and we'll just choose, let's choose iPhone 14 Pro. Okay, now I'm going to select all these by holding Shift and just selecting the titles of those frames. And we're going to give it a background. As you can see right here, we have a fill color. All right, you can choose this to select your own colors as you wish, or we can specify this 6-character hex code. And that's what we're going to do. And I have a specific one that I've saved off screen. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in. So it is E8F5E2. All right, hit enter. And now it's changed them all to green. All right. Now, we're going to worry about these two things later on when it comes to the responsive design based on the design we implement on desktop. I always design desktop first when I'm designing layouts, and that's because it's a lot more easier to imagine the full realized layout than it is to work your way opposite and try to add stuff thereafter. Now you may be wondering, why are we creating, if you're brand new to this, multiple designs? Well, essentially a website needs to be responsive, meaning it can be viewed on desktops really large like this, it can be viewed on tablets, and it can be viewed on tiny mobile phones. So we have to create a version of these things that will work and it will adapt to these different screen sizes. Very important. It's called responsive design. Okay, so the first thing I usually start off with is a logo. Now I'm going to link this asset here that I'm about to paste in the YouTube description so that you can use this SVG based logo. I'm going to paste it in and you can see it is right there. If we hit Shift G, we want to make sure that this logo is right on the left side, right there. All right. So this is a logo called Couply, and this is for a fictional coupon app, essentially. Okay. Now, once we have that in place, we're going to go ahead and create a centered horizontal navigation. And then over here to the right will be a call to action button where it says start saving. So to create that navigation, it's actually a little bit of work because I have to introduce several key concepts that are so important to working with in Figma. So make sure you pay attention to this because you're going to be using this stuff a lot. So we want to create what are called components and component variants. Now this actually is a component. How do I know that? Because it's outlined here in purple. So if you look at this, it has this purple outline. That means it's a component. It's also purple over here. And if we double click, by the way, we could change that to logo. And a component is just simply a reusable element. So let me right click real quick and I'm going to what's called detach an instance. Actually, this is the master component. Never mind. I'm going to duplicate it. Control D or Command D on Mac will duplicate that because I want to show you the power of components. So if I wanted to change, for instance, the color of the logo type from black to something else, well, all I have to do is come over here and change it. Now notice how it changes on this instance of the component. So if you're working with a big website that has a bunch of different frames and subpages and all that, and you have this component there, you're not going to have to manually adjust each one of those. So that's the power of components. Use them wisely. Okay, and that's what we want to do with our navigation elements. We're going to have 4 links that says home, coupons, FAQ, or frequently asked questions, and contact. And typically, when you have navigation items, they're repeated patterns. You don't change up the appearance of your nav items. So it makes sense to make those components as well. So let's go ahead and take our type tool. I'm going to left click and we're going to choose home. All right. So for home, we're going to change this from bold to regular. And we're going to make it size 18. So I'm changing this stuff right over there in the property inspector. So notice when I move this around, this is another key concept. You see all these red horizontal lines. Sometimes there'll be vertical lines. These are for alignment. We want this one right here where it has this red line in the center. That means it's going to be centered vertically with each other. Alignment in UI design is massively important. You have to really pay attention and make sure your things are aligned in a cohesive manner that makes sense. Once you have it over there, hold shift and you can move it over without it doing something like this when you're trying to move it over. So right there. And right now its actual placement isn't that important. We just want to make sure, you know, it's aligned up here right there in the center. Now, with our design, you don't have to follow along. I just want to show you something real quick. I'm going to duplicate that, which is Control D, and just move it over. We don't want to start doing this right now and just kind of moving these over. By the way, if you hold shift, you'll see it has equal white space between. It'll let you know how much, so that's helpful. You don't want to start doing this because we didn't create these components first. But we also always, when it comes to navigations, you want to have what's called an active state. So right now, we're designing a home page. So we need to signify the fact that they're currently on a home page in some way, shape, or form. Typically, that's through like an underline. So if you come over here and we choose underline, you can do that. That's perfectly fine. You can change the color. You can make it bold. You can add a little icon next to it. So those are the primary ways that you can signify an active state. But what's important when it comes to our components is that we have a way to toggle on and off which one of these is active. And you do that through what's called component variants. So before we create the component, let's create this design right here. I'm holding Control, mouse scroll, zooming up, and we're going to take the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to create kind of like a half sort of underline. And so I'm going to take this and make it black, and we're going to come up here right there and just, oops, let me drag that. It's not working. There we go. Okay, it's just kind of hiding it. I'm just right clicking and dragging to create that rounded pill shape right here. Sorry about that. Now we've created the active state design. With that selected, I may want to move this over just to the left. Actually, it's fine where it was. Now with that selected, I want to take both of these elements and we're going to go ahead and create a group, not a group out of it, sorry. We're going to go ahead and create a frame out of this. So we're going to right click and you can choose frame selection. All right. And so that means, yes, you can have a frame within this frame here overall. When we do that, we want to add auto layout right here. So you click plus, and then we can go ahead at this point and create a component up here. I know it's a little bit confusing, but we're going to click this button and it should all start to make sense in a second. Now, when we create that component, this changes up here into a plus sign, which means you can add a variant of that component, which is what we want to do. We want to have two different states. We want to have a default state and then an active state where this underline is shown up. So we click this plus, and now it's going to outline everything here. Now I'm going to hit the frame tool just temporarily and just drag on an area where I can put this component. Now we're going to come back here, and now we have our two components. By default, we're just going to go ahead and double click or control or command left click to select this specific little pill shape down here. And when we do that, there we go. When we do that, we want to come over here to pass through right there and change that 100% value to 0. Now, let's go ahead and click it back in and just choose where it says default. And we want to change where it says property 1 default. We'll just say inactive. All right. Then we're going to take this one, come back here, and we're going to call that active. Okay. Whew, okay, a lot of work, I know. But once you start doing this enough, it becomes second nature and it's a part of your muscle memory. Now we're gonna go to assets over here. Sorry about that. Trying to zoom up, there we go, assets, and we're gonna click on frame 2 and then take home, and we wanna drag that on right here. So here's an instance now of our main component over here. Now, what's really cool is we could take this, if I zoom up, or rather, I can't zoom up, we can take this over here and change the state from inactive to active. Notice how it toggles it on right here. So what we can do now is duplicate this, Control D, move it over. Somewhere around there looks good. We're gonna change this one to inactive. And then, this is one of the exciting parts, we select both of them and we choose auto layout right over here. Now when we do that, it now allows us to double click on this one. Well, first we can change the name to coupons. Hit escape after making that change. So now we can double click, duplicate it. Notice it maintains the white space between them automatically. This one will be FAQ for frequently asked questions. Duplicate it. And then finally we'll change this one to contact. Okay, so watch this. We can automatically, when it's an auto layout, change the space between, or the white space between these elements. So it allows you, auto layout allows you to do really cool things like this that can save you a bunch of time. And now that is essentially our nav item right here. And what we can do is come right up here with it selected and click this. This is an alignment. So you can align things to left, right, in horizontal and vertical fashion with these elements right here. So we want to choose the align horizontal centers, and that puts us right in the center of this entire frame. And that right there is our navigation. Now we're going to go ahead and create another component, and it's going to be a call to action, which is just a fancy term of saying a button that you want people to click. And it's going to be, and we're going to give it the name of Start Saving. So let's do that. Take your type tool, T on your keyboard, or just hit T up here. We're going to left click and type in Start Saving. Okay. So for Start Saving type, it's going to be 18 pixels again. So we're going to come over here, change the font size to 18 right there. We're also going to make it regular for the font weight. So it looks exactly like these other ones at this point at least. And we're going to wrap a button container around it. So we're going to hit R for the rectangle tool. And then we're going to come to our layers, and we want to make sure we drag that rectangle underneath Start Saving. So now we can see it. Now we're going to go ahead and give this button a specific color. And that color code with it selected over here is 6CDBBD. Hit enter. And there we go. Now, with both of these selected, we want to take over here and choose auto layout. And we also want to choose center right here, center alignment. This means when I drag this out, this is going to stay in the center. So you can change the position of where this type stays with your auto layout, which is very handy. So somewhere right around here looks pretty good. We'll give it a little bit of a corner radius. And I'm also going to go ahead and give it a high contrast black stroke. So you can add a stroke, which is basically a border around it. When you click it, you have properties. For now, I like this as is, and I think it looks pretty decent. And another tip right here is if you zoom up here, or if I zoom up, you can change the white space all around here, specifically for each side. So I think that looks real good right there. Now, if you want to have an icon in here, like maybe a little down icon, which was my original intention, I forgot to add it. Let's just hit ungroup. Actually, instead of hitting ungroup, what we're going to do is this. We're going to hit Shift L, which is the line tool right up here, or the arrow tool. Right, so I'm sorry about that. And just right here, I'm going to pull down, hold Shift to make a perfectly vertical up and down arrow. Notice how it kind of pushed over that Start Saving. It's now a part of that auto layout. So what I can do now is take the size down to just a 1 from 3. And now I can just push this out, and guess what? We have an icon right there. So now would be a good time to create a component out of this. If you wanted to create a component variant, maybe where you have a hover state, you can do that. In fact, I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. We can click plus right here. Let's drag this over here to our component frame. Maybe on hover this side, maybe the background gets slightly darker. So the fill over here is on the right-hand properties background. It's going to make it a little bit darker. All right, and that's it. Now, what's really cool is for interactivity, we can prototype this. So I'm going to double click on the first one and then choose prototype up here. And when I choose prototype, you're going to see this little plus sign. We can drag it right there. And when we do that, it shows this area over here. So on click, you can make things happen on click, on drag, while hovering. We're going to do while hovering for a hover state. All right, so now it's going to change that, and we can change it from instant to smart animate, which can do really interesting things. For now, I think I'm fine with that. And now, if we go to our assets over here, we can drag this on to our document. Let's hit Shift G to get our grid up. Make sure it's aligned perfectly. All right, Shift G to toggle that off. Now let's hit play in the upper right corner. Now it's showing that the mobile smartphone template. Hit your right keyboard arrow a couple times, and notice how it changes based on the hover. So if I come Control 4, there we go. It's a very subtle change. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to the working tab up here. And that is our header, which I like the header. So once we have our header or a navigation of sorts, we can go ahead and create, let's go to design, an actual component out of it up here, because this is something that would show up multiple times. And then we can choose auto layout. All right, so we're going to choose center. And so now if we needed to put this inside of our, for instance, if we duplicate this, just hold Alt or Option on Mac, and we can create and drag on an instance of it. We can go ahead and just reduce the, let's see here, reduce this value right here where it says 314. We can just left click and drag, and now we can just put this over here and it'll fit nicely in that context. So that's the power of components. And of course you can nest components within components, as you've seen. So very handy there. Let's go ahead and work on the hero section now. The hero section is basically the first thing you see, and it typically consists of a headline, a sub-headline, call to action button, something large of some sort, and maybe an illustration or a photograph or something like that. It's basically the first thing you typically see. So we're gonna go ahead, before we do that actually, we're gonna create a high contrast, which means black, border, kind of like that. So we're gonna hold L or hit L for the line tool, hold Shift, left click, drag all the way from the very left of the frame to the very right around there. I think the placement I got is perfect, but if you wanna move it, just select it and use your keyboard up and down arrow keys. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create the headline. Hit T for the type tool. We're gonna left click and we're gonna say shopping with coupons, and it's gonna be much larger, by the way, applied automatically. Now, we want this to be large. That's one of the big things about UI design is your headline needs to be the first thing that a person reads. You do that by establishing what's called visual hierarchy. I talk about this a lot, and it's basically one of the core UI design principles. And basically it means you're setting priority to things based on how you design and present them. And when it comes to type, you do one of the primary ways to do that is through the scale or the font size. So we're gonna make this a font size of 45 from 24. So 45, and then we're gonna left click and drag this in right around there. So that looks pretty good right there. And we wanna make sure it's lined up here. You can hit Shift G, but your vertical alignment on the left, as you can see, it's allowing us to, it's just letting us know that it's lined up on that right along with this logo right there. And then we're gonna go ahead and I'm going to show you a really powerful thing that you can do. If we come up here to the little home icon on the upper left, we're going to go ahead and choose community. And then when you do that, you get to this section, and I'm going to search for just the following words: hand drawn, up in the top search bar. Hit enter, and you have all these, the Figma community basically has a bunch of assets that you can use and search through that other people have created. Now, some of them, if you click them, it'll give you like a trial of some of them, and you have to pay or whatever, but this one's not the case as it looks. It's called hand-drawn retro shapes. So you can just type in retro shapes and find this as well. If you click on the upper right-hand corner, get a copy, it's going to open up a new tab here in Figma. And we could change over here as pages. We're going to choose design. And here's all these just little assets that we can choose to integrate. So I'm going to choose these right here. So let's take it, Control-C to copy, go back to our project tab, Control-V to paste, hold Shift, scale that down right around here. We're going to make it a little bit smaller. All right, right there. It's just a nice design asset that we can use to make our design look more interesting, essentially. All right, so now we're going to have two columns beneath this, and we're going to hit the type tool, T, used by over 500,000 people. Visual hierarchy. This is our headline, this is not. So we want people to read this, and then secondary to that, we'll have them read this. So this is going to be much smaller. The size of this one is just going to be a measly 16. So change that. And we're going to make it regular. So not only is it not bold, it's also a lot smaller. So we're going to position it probably somewhere right around here. Good white space between our elements. You don't want things too close. You don't want things off, slightly off and not aligned. And we're going to create little avatar people. Just basically circles with people's pictures in them. So here's how we do that. We come over here and we choose ellipse, or the shortcut is O, the letter O on your keyboard. Now I'm going to hold Shift to create a perfect circle. If you let Shift go, you can create ovals and stuff. And right around here would probably be a pretty good size. Now, I'm going to introduce you to another concept that is very powerful, and that is plugins. Figma has a huge ecosystem of plugins that people have created. And the one plugin I use the most probably is Unsplash. If you go to unsplash.com, they have a website where you can search through 100% free to use photographs, and you could search through them. So here's how you install an actual plugin. If we come over here back to the home section, in the community search bar, we'll type in Unsplash, hit enter, and we choose plugins, and you can see right here it says Unsplash, and over here you could choose try it out. Now when you do that, it does open up a new document, and if you come right here, you'll see our plugins tab. You'll see Unsplash right there. So we're going to go back, and what you can do at this point is run it from plugins. Choose run. All right, and we are going to do a search. So for our search, we're just going to put in person. Hit enter, and here's a bunch of people. So we're going to use her. She's one of the most famous people. All designers know who this person is, and all these other people, because they don't change up the results, essentially. And so now we have a picture of this person inside of this oval that we created. So it's important to first select that and then choose this. So we could change this up by, just continually clicking, as long as we select this element right there. Now I want to give this a stroke on the outside of this. So we're going to come over here and we're going to choose stroke right there. I'm going to change the color of the stroke to white. All right, and then the width, I think, to 3. And we're going to choose outside. So the stroke will be on the outside. So it should look something like this right here now. Now we're going to go ahead and, with this window, we're going to leave this open. We're going to duplicate it, Control D, and just kind of hold Shift and move it over so they're overlapping. But instead of doing that, what I will do is just move it over to the side, select both of them. We're going to go ahead and choose Auto Layout, and we could use negative spacing so they can overlap. So now if I double click or control click this one, the second version, we could put in another person. Now we can go ahead and select him, duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. We're gonna have 5. So we're gonna select this. We're gonna put her there. Doesn't matter who you choose. It's just a bunch of people. There we go. Now we're gonna have one more of these people. I'm gonna duplicate that, but I'm gonna take this one and just pull that person out because we're gonna have like a featured one over here. Now let's go ahead and give this, whoa, 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 whoa. That was not supposed to happen. We're gonna go ahead and select there we go, this person. Now we have 6 unique people. Now we're gonna wrap around a pill-shaped rectangle around them. So we're gonna hit the R for rectangle, and then we're going to go back to layers and left click and drag that underneath the ellipse. We're gonna select both of them, or rather we're gonna select this one and choose fill, make it white. We're going to, you could change the border radius all the way up here like we've been doing, or if you hover over it, you can see these little circles in the corners. We're just gonna drag all the way in, and you could do it that way as well. So we're gonna position it right around there so this person is pretty much perfectly around with equal white space all around. Now in here, we're gonna put a little quote along with the name. So the person's quote is going to be same type probably here. Yep, size 16. And use your bracket key. If something's behind something, you can use your bracket keys, your right and left ones. So the right key will push it all the way to the top of your frame, and the left one will put it all the way to the bottom. So we're gonna put that right here. And I'm just gonna say, wow, I saved $500, exclamation point. We're gonna drag and give ourselves some space here. And then after doing that, we're gonna duplicate this. I think we'll go pretty small, size 12. This is gonna be a person's name, double click. We'll just put in Johnny Doe. Wait, I did not want that. Let's just do this. There we go. Now we're gonna go ahead and make this bold, and we're gonna give it a green color. So we're gonna take this little eyedropper tool right here, and then get the background, and then just pull this down right there. There we go. This guy saved $500 using this app that does not exist. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. All right. Kind of moving things around a little bit. Now we're gonna go ahead and create a second column, and to separate them, we're gonna create a vertical border. So line tool is L on your keyboard. We're gonna start right up around here and end it right around there. Now we could take it, hold shift, and kind of move it around as we need to. Okay. And we're gonna have a 3-step process here. It's gonna say download the extension, visit your favorite online retailers, and then save, apply coupons from the toolbar or something like that. And so we have to design for this 3-step process. So let's take our type tool. We're gonna say download the extension for Chrome or Firefox. All right, that's step 1, and we're probably gonna push this in a little bit. And then we're gonna go ahead and create a circle, hit O, the letter O on the keyboard, hold shift, we'll make it black, hit T for the type tool, and then put 1. We're gonna put that like right around there. Now, pro tip, whenever you're dealing with numbers that need to be centered, we can hold the Alt key or Option key on Mac and push this all the way to the very left and right side of whatever container it's in, which in this case is this circle, and then just choose over here this option, center alignment. That way it's always going to be centered even if you have multiple steps. We're only going to have 3 though. All right, so you take these, move them as you wish. I think right there looks pretty good. And then I'm going to take both of these, and we can go ahead and hit Control G to group them. Once we do that, we select both of these, and we'll choose Auto Layout. All right, and I'm gonna change this to top. So we're aligning it top left. You're gonna see why we do this in a little bit when it comes to our tablet version, because let me duplicate this. Our tablet version, we're gonna change the direction of the auto layout from column to row right here. So if I click this, notice how it's on top now, and we can control the white space. And you'll see how that comes into play. So now we're gonna take this, duplicate it, hold shift, move it down, select both of these, left click and drag, and we're gonna choose another auto layout. All right, so now we have an auto layout in this direction. So now we can just double click this, duplicate, Control D. Now we can change this here to 2. By the way, you could have created the component out of this in case you want to change colors or you want to make some change in the future. It would make sense to do that. So we're going to click into here. You can double click a bunch of times or just Control left click. Sometimes I have old habits of double clicking unnecessarily. Then we're going to change this one to visit your favorite online retailers. And then this one will be save, apply coupons from the toolbar. Let's put a period here. The other two had periods at the end. Okay. So that looks pretty solid here. Let's see here. Yeah, we want to center these. Sorry about that. It's going to be centered left right here. So I'm going to take this one and this one and choose center. There we go. All right. Actually, this one I kind of want it to be the top. Okay, that's better. Now we're going to have one final. I basically, what do you call a call to action right here called install extension, and it's going to be designed similar to this. So I'm just going to duplicate this. Now, of course, when you duplicate it, when it's inside auto layout, it'll kind of push it out, but I'm just going to left click and drag it off onto here. And what I'm going to do is I don't want to use this style for the button, so we don't want it to be a part of the component. To do that, we right click and we choose detach instance, and it's right there. So right click, detach instance. Now it's no longer a part of that component. So if I make changes to this one up here, it will not affect this one. Now, the reason I want it to be different is because we're going to style this a little bit differently. We're going to give it a stroke and all that good stuff. But you know what? I was actually kind of wrong about that because you still can make these changes on an instance of a component. So I'm going to back up just to show you. Oops. Let me go back here. Here, let's get this out of the way. All right, so we have to do some searching for our button right here. Now this is frame 5 and 6. Sometimes what I can do just to see this, if it's off the screen, you can't see it. This is called frame 6. Okay, we should name these appropriately so I know exactly where they're at. So I'm just gonna take this and drag it off there, and then we can go back and just push this back where it needs to be. Okay, so we're back to where we were. So let me show you how to do this while it's an instance of a component. We want a thicker border, larger type, and we want the type to be bold. And we also want to give it a drop shadow. So let's go ahead and make the type right here bold. And for the font size, we're just going to make it slightly larger from, actually we're going to leave it at 18. We're going to make this little arrow, Control left click. We don't want it to be kind of like that. I think I'm going to use like 1.3. So it's a little bit more bold. We're going to make it a little bit larger. We're going to make the stroke larger as well, from 1 to 2 right down here. And then we're also going to give it a effect. So the effect is a drop shadow, but I don't like that drop shadow. We're going to change that. The way we change it, let me move this over here so you can see when I zoom up, is we click this little button right here, and this is our settings. 4 on the x-axis, 4 on the y, blur is going to be 0, and then the opacity, which is the transparency, is going to be 100%. It's going to be all black. So that's the aesthetic we're going for. Control 4, let me get out of here. And there you go. We can also change the color of the background, which I want to do as well to make it a little bit more vibrant. So for the color of the background, we're going to come over here and we're going to say 98C588, hit enter. And there you go. It's just more of a vibrant color. So this is the same component essentially, except we really created a lot of iterations on it. So instead of start saving, we're going to change this to install extension. Drag this out. And there you go. All right, so that looks pretty good right here. And now what we're going to do is work on another section. So I'm going to take this. Pro tip, if you ever try to change the size of your frame and it starts moving things around, hold Control and then it'll ignore all of those constraints and resizing issues from occurring. Let's hit R on a rectangle, and we're gonna left click and drag out and make a black rectangle and connect it with the bottom of that. Now notice the amount of white space around here. It's all, everything's looking quite solid and consistent, which is what you want with your design. You don't want to push things up too close or anything like that. So mind your white space, very important. Now in this section, at this point in time, I don't want to have to select this. Here's another tip. With this layer selected, we can come over here and choose this little lock. That'll make it so if we're working here, it's not going to select this unnecessarily. Now there's another plugin that I want you to use. So you can search for the plugins, by the way, up here as well. So if I type in, there's a plugin that I like to use called Brand Fetch. So Brand Fetch, right here, choose Run. And what it does is it gives you a ton of logos for brands that you commonly know. So like for instance, Amazon, you can type in Amazon, or it's under my recent search. So if I click this, I'm gonna choose this logo version, and I'm just gonna go ahead and click it. And it's gonna automatically import the Amazon logo into my project. Now I want everything to be white. And when you select a number of elements, over here under selection colors, you can just change them all that way easily. So select it again. Oops, there we go. And we want to make them all white. So that's the orange is going to be white and the black is going to be white. There we go. We're going to take all this stuff. Let's just group this up, hold shift, scale it down. And this right here is going to be kind of like what's called like a trust section commonly. It's just to show like other companies who possibly have used this service. Shift G to make sure we have this aligned up. There we go. And do that for a bunch of other, probably three other logos. So the other ones are going to be Best Buy, Shopify, and Walmart. I already have those designed off screen. So I'm just going to copy those. I have them all the colors change, and just paste them in. All right, Shift G, let's hide that. Now at this point, let's also put in a little button that says View All Brands. All right, I'm going to show you another cool plugin as well in a second. So hit the Type tool, View All Brands. We want to make this an underline because that's a decision I'm choosing to make. You have a lot of subjective decisions you can choose. And we're also going to put an icon next to it. So there's a great plugin called Iconify. So if I go up to my plugin section, type Iconify, choose Run. So I can just type in I. All right, I like this one. We're going to left click, drag it on. We're going to make it white under selection colors. Put it right there. We can select both by holding shift, auto layout, and left center right there. Now let's go ahead and hit Shift G, and we'll align this perhaps right there. All right, Shift G, close it, and there we go. Now we could probably space these out a little bit further. There we go. All right, so now let's go ahead, and in this section underneath it, Control, expand this down. We're gonna go ahead and put in an image gallery. And we're gonna use components for this specific section. So, rectangle, R key. These are gonna be an image gallery that's gonna consist of what are called cards. And card design is a common pattern in UI design when you have information that's that's repeated multiple times but has multiple bits of information that are contained within an aesthetic of a card, essentially. We're gonna go ahead and make the background white. We're gonna give a little bit of border radius, probably around 3. Border, corner radius, whatever. We're gonna go ahead and add a effect of drop shadow. Again, same thing over here. It's gonna be X4, blur is 0, opacity is 100%. And then also a stroke. We're gonna make it size 2 and leave it at black. I think we'll go to a little bit more on these corner radius. So I made it 9 this time. All right, so we're gonna take this and we're gonna duplicate that white rectangle. We're going to move it up. And we're going to hit the little dash sign to remove the drop shadow in the stroke from the inner one. Okay, so the reason we're going to do this, you're going to see in a second. Now we're going to go right click, plugins, unsplash. That's another way you can run your plugins. And you have to do it outside of the actual frame. And we're going to type in shoes. So with that selected, we're going to choose this pastel sort of picture right here. All right, so we have a couple issues. We want to select this original behind it and then choose where it says inside for a stroke, choose outside. So now it's not overlapping our image. And then right here, we don't want these rounded corners, but we do want them up here. So you can control specifically by first holding Control. You're holding Control and then left clicking, dragging. I'm sorry, it's Alt. I always screw that up and forget that. So it's Alt or Option on Mac. Now, going forward, you don't have to do that again. You could just drag this one. So it maintained, and you can see it's up here. The properties are up here. So this one is a top left corner radius, top right, bottom left. So we have the corner radius on the top left, top right, but not the bottoms down here. And that's what we want, essentially. All right, so we can move this up. And now we're going to have a label for this. So we're going to hit T. We're going to say women's Nike shoes. Put it right there. We're going to go ahead and make that bold. And I like the size of this. It's size 16. We could probably maybe go a little larger. Yeah, we can go larger than that. We can choose 22 for that. All right. And then we're going to put a price. So for a price, we're going to take, we'll just duplicate the original again. Control D. And we're going to put a price right here. Now for this one, we can go ahead and get rid of all the corner radius, just choose 0 up there. And we don't need a stroke. We want to make the fill black, just like that. Now we're going to put in a price. So we can hold Alt, Shift, left click, drag to create a replication of that one, or a duplication, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to make it white. And we're going to put a price here, $59. We're going to put it right around there. Oh, and by the way, look how this is happening. We actually do, on the lower one, want to create, there we go. That way it doesn't extend out. Now we're going to take both of these, and I want to drag this all the way out to the very right and then the very left, and we're going to center this. There we go. That way it stays centered no matter what value we have. I'm going to take both of these, and we're just going to Control G to group them. It puts them in a group right over here. And one thing we haven't touched on is constraints, which is a very important topic. So what are constraints? Well, let's say in the context of this card, and by the way, let's go ahead and create, we're going to select all this. Make sure you've locked this black background. We don't want it a part of it. And we want to create a component out of it. So we click that little component button up here. All right, so for this card, it looks pretty good and all, but I'm going to go ahead and create a second kind of iteration of this card. So I'm going to duplicate it, holding Control D. We're going to move it over. I'm going to right click and detach the instance of this, so it's no longer going to be a component or tied to this main component. And we're going to make a couple changes here. So I'm going to right click and ungroup. All right, so now what I'll do is push this down, holding Shift. This time, we're going to have a title up here. And then we're also going to leave this here. These are going to be for cards that are kind of like smaller in width. So we're going to take, we're going to come out here and then select both of these because there's actually two elements. It's the card background and the photograph, and we're going to bring that in. And then we're going to go ahead and change this one to quickie arrows, whatever that is. And we're going to give this a price of like $14. Then we're going to go ahead and select the photograph, right click, plugins, unsplash. We're going to say archery. I'm going to choose that one. And this time we want to reverse because the top ones, we don't want that to happen. What we could do, I wonder if this will work. If I take this top right here, hold Alt and reverse this, there we go. That way I don't have to mess around with too much of anything else, adjusting those corners. So that one looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to take this and we'll go ahead and create a component out of it. All right, so now if I come in here, by the way, I can drag this out. I'm going to duplicate this. Again, Shift G. We don't want this to be larger than that or extend outside of this last column. Now we want to make sure we have equal white space. Notice where it says, it's hard to see, it says 28 between this here, this card, and this card there. We're going to change this one to headphones. And these headphones are going to be 99. Oh, oopsie. Yeah, well, oh yeah, that's fine. In doing this, we flip that around. So let's go back. Those arrows look very strange. Let me go back and just type in archery, and we're going to reselect that, and hopefully that will fix it. It may not actually. Let's see. Oh, they're all going to be upside down. I did not really realize that. Okay, so no big deal. We're going to have to come back in. I should have realized that. We're going to flip it the way it was, and then just alter these specifically. These are going to be up there. And then these ones have a border radius, I believe it's of 9, yeah. So it'll tell you the border radius next to it and also in the property inspector. There we go. So now we're gonna go ahead and take this, and this is gonna be a pair of headphones. So we're gonna type in headphones in the unsplash box and choose this one. All right. We'll take another one of these and push it right around here. This one's going to be heels. Is that how you spell heels? It's not H-E-A-L-S, is it? Like shoe heels? I don't know. We'll get unsplash again. This is going to be heels. Yes, I was right. We'll do for this one. We're going to maybe use this Alt and drag out. We're going to use this design. Okay. And this will be what? Cool shades. All right. And then sunglasses, search in Unsplash. Yeah, I like this picture here. And then we'll drag this one out. Okay. And then finally, we're going to use one more right here. Alt Shift down to get that there. And then this one's going to be alcohol. Something that I like too much of. All right, so the alcohol is going to be, we'll choose that one. Obviously not $99. You can adjust these prices if you wish, but it doesn't matter. This is all just for practice. Now we're going to go ahead and take this element, Alt, and drag it way down here, and just make the selection colors black. This is going to say View All Offers. Okay. Now we're almost done, but we need to have a footer. So for our footer, we're going to take this divider up here, place it right around there. We're also going to take our nav up here, duplicate, put it right around there. Now this time I don't want a call to action of start saving. I mean, we could, but I'm just choosing not to show that you can actually delete elements in here, which is pretty cool. So I could take this and left this, and then one moment, spacing mode is going to be space between. There we go. So you can actually change the spacing mode right here, so it puts space between. And that looks pretty good. Just a few more things. You can use that brand thing to get some social media icons. So I did that already. So it's called Brand Fetch, that plugin. At this point, you should be pretty comfortable with being able to do this, you know, yourself right here. And then finally, I also had one more piece of type of a copyright. And the color code for that is 6C7667. That's the color code, and it's a size of 14. And there we go. So we can just take this, hold Control, push it up. And oh, one other thing I wanted to do is give this a white background. So I'm going to hit R. This section will have a white background. I'm going to hit a left bracket key, make it white, and there we go. There we go. That is the finished home page. Very fun stuff. So now let's go ahead and switch gears, and we're gonna make this responsive for tablet. So how would I do that exactly? All right, it's actually pretty easy. We're gonna take this and hold Alt or Option on Mac, Shift, and left click, and drag it over. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and reduce the white space in the middle. We can go ahead and center this. And we can add a layout grid. So this is going to change from grid to column. We're going to choose 8 for column count, and then maybe like 60 or so for our margin on the right and left. So I can boost this, reduce this slightly. There we go. That looks solid right there. Shift G. We're going to maintain this element right here, this little divider. So I'm holding Alt Shift, dragging in. Take this corner and just hold Shift and drag it there. All right, that's looking great. This time we're gonna change, we don't have enough space for all this stuff. Like watch, if we just replicate it, I mean, we could reduce the white space between, but it'd still be a little bit tight. So we're gonna collapse these 2 columns into 2 rows, which is what you're primarily doing for the most part when it comes to responsive design for different devices and viewports. So we're going to take this stuff right here, Alt, and just drag it over. And this time we're going to push this out a little bit more. I'm going to leave that right there. And then we're going to go ahead and at this point put in this divider line. And we're going to take these 2 elements, Alt, drag them over. All right, and we're going to change a few things. So first, we're going to change the auto layout of these to the column based right there. Then we're going to select into this one right here, and this one, holding Shift, and choose the vertical direction. Look at that. It looks pretty solid, and we could probably reduce the white space between those 2 elements. I'm going to take this one specifically, and I don't want to adjust that. I want to pull it. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to Control left click and select just the type. All right, so that they're a little bit less. And don't worry, we're going to fix a couple things here. This is going to stay pretty much as it is, and then this one is going to be just toolbar being at the bottom. Now we're going to select all this and then increase this. Now we hit Shift G, we can kind of do this even more. There we go. Actually, I might want to take this one down. There we go. All right. There we go. All right. So now what we can do is put the install extension probably right here. You could possibly center it as well, but I'm just going to leave it right there. You know what? It probably makes sense. I'm sorry. My designer brain in me is wanting me to fix a couple things because we have a lot of white space between them. So what we can do now is select this, bring this in. That looks better. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take these elements. So we have a locked layer right here, right there. So I'm going to unlock this black layer. Holding Alt. And it doesn't matter if it extends a little bit outside of the frame itself. And then we're going to take these 4. Alt and drag them in. That looks like it's almost perfect. Yeah, it's almost perfect. I don't even really have to make an adjustment on those. Now I'm choosing to hide view all brands here on tablet, which is one of the things that you can choose to do based on items that may not be that important. I'm going to take our frame, hold Control, and just drag that down. And now here, one of the common things that you end up changing responsively is the actual, like a photo gallery, on how the thumbnails and cards are presented. So I'm going to take this and hold Alt to duplicate it, get it into position, and maybe we can have 2 columns of these, like that. And then select both of those, hold Shift, and then it would make sense to use what is called the auto layout with these, but I'm just going to replicate them. We want to have this white background as well behind them. Left bracket key to get that there. View all offers. Now, mind you, I didn't take each one of these and move them over, just because it's going to be a lot more work. So you get the point, though, that if this were a real project, you would want to maintain all the same ones and get them all situated as needed. So then we're going to take this black bar right there. And by the way, if this were a real project, you would probably want to take these elements and create a actual component out of them called footer or something like that. I'm going to put this right here. We're going to reduce the white space here. Oh, this says space between. That's why I could just take this and drag it. And then we add type right here. And there we go. That's the tablet version. And then finally, you would have to do the same concept over here as well with the phone. So the phone I definitely want to tackle just because there's some other important considerations when it comes to navigation. So I know I've been talking a lot. This is a long tutorial. So what we're going to do now is add a layout grid in columns. 4 this time, which is common for mobile, and then we'll use maybe like 20 for the white space on the left and right. We're going to grab just our logo. That's all we need. So I'm going to just Control C, copy it, and then Control V to paste it in right around here. And now we're going to go ahead, right click, go to plugins, iconify, and type in menu. And let's see here. And we'll just choose this one. Make it a little bit larger. And get that positioned up. Actually, I may push this in just a little bit. Okay. So we're going to create a navigation for mobile and prototype it as well. We're going to save that for the end though, because I want to translate the rest of this design here. So now we're going to take and just do this process that we did before. Shift G, get rid of the thingies, as they're called. Actually, they're not called thingies. They're called the grid. So let's move this up. All right, this time we're going to take the type, duplicate it. We're going to make it smaller. So you can resize the type on smaller devices, like 32. We'll center it, drag this in, and then click your center up here. There we go. We're also going to have this section. Make sure that's centered by clicking center. And then we're just going to take this, these people, Alt, drag them over there, center them up as well. And we're going to opt just not to have this little quote here. It's not important. All right. Then we're going to go ahead back over here to the original one. Take these two, copy them, Control C, paste them, Control V. Now we want to make sure, notice how it says frame here in some of this. That means it's not inside of this frame for whatever reason, this mobile frame. So iPhone 14 is way down there, and these are way up here for some reason. So if that happens, you just take them all and put them inside the frame. There we go. So now it's where it needs to be. Shift G, let's see where our borders are. Oh, let's delete that. There we go. All right. And for these ones, let's see here. This actually looks pretty good as is. So for install extension, let's just bring this all the way out, which is a common pattern for buttons on mobile. Shift G. All right. Oh, I do want to add this. Let's take this, a separator. There we go. Oh wait, this is not quite even, it looks like. Let's see here. It looks like there's more white. Oh, the reason it looks like there's more white space here than there is because of this shadow, but it is in and of itself centered up. Okay, and then we can go ahead and take this section. I'm just gonna take the first two of those logos, hold Alt, bring them in. Let's bring this in. Let's take these two, hold Shift and scale them down. And take these two, paste them in. Sometimes it'll put them up where you don't want to, just drag it back down. We're gonna create 2 rows and 2 columns out of this. So you just have to think intelligently in terms of how you're gonna structure your designs essentially. Now at this point, all we have to do is just take this one. All right, and let's push this in. We may have to make some adjustments here. All right, well, we'll leave it that height, but we're just gonna push this in. So, okay, here's a real important element. Notice how this is not staying centered in that container. We have to find, if we go to the original component, which is over here, we take this type right here. We want to make sure right is changed to scale. So now it's back centered over here. So hopefully that makes sense. So now we can just take this. Let's make sure it's lined up. Shift G, we can push this right here. Duplicate it. And maybe we only want to have 3 of these on mobile because it would be a pain to kind of have to thumb through and scroll through all of those. So now we take our background, our white background, left bracket, push it up. We're gonna put this here, take this, replicate it, we'll center this one, get our line, which is already scaled up to size down here, hold Alt Shift, pull it down. And yes, I know I'm fast, but I've been doing this forever, so don't be too discouraged. And then this time, I guess we can go ahead and we can restructure our navigation. So I'm gonna duplicate this, Control D, just grab it and drag it over. Actually, no, let me delete that. I just want the logo itself. So I'm gonna drag this over here, get that into space. Then we're just gonna take these, put them over here. And then we could take our nav itself. I'm gonna duplicate that, Control V to paste, and just put it right here and get these aligned up. So let's hit Shift G. There we go. And then finally get this type here, make sure it's centered. Take our frame, hold Control, and push it right there. There we go. A lot of work, but let's do that final thing for the navigation. So I'm gonna push this over here, and I'm gonna hit R for a rectangle and just put a big old rectangle over everything. And it'll be like kind of like 2/3 the width of the frame itself. We're gonna make it white. All right. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our navigation. So I copied it, so I double clicked, Control C to copy, come over here, Control V to paste, and change the auto layout to down. Put it like right around there. And then we're gonna right click, go to Iconify, choose exit. Now let's choose close. There we go, and we'll choose this one right here. Make it larger. Put it right around there. All right, I think that looks good for a mobile nav. So now we're gonna take these 3 elements, holding Shift, and we'll go ahead and create a frame. So frame selection, right click frame selection. And now we're gonna move it off to the side. So it comes outside of this frame. Let's just call this nav. Now we're gonna switch to prototype. We're gonna take this hamburger menu and drag a connection to it. in which case we see this over here. On click, we want to open overlay. And then we can choose top right. That's where we want it to show. And then for this right here, we want to choose move in. Then we want to take our exit, point it back, or instead of doing that, we just want to choose it and we want to add, under click layer, let's remove this. We want to take this, we want to add an interaction on the upper right, and click, we want to close overlay. There we go. So now let's go ahead and choose this frame and click play. Oops, oh, I hate when that happens. This little nav bar shows up sometimes. If you click it, there we go. And it slides out. Awesome, awesome stuff. So let's go ahead and go back. And that, my friends, is it. That is essentially the process of UI and some UX design and prototyping. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch gears and I'm gonna show you, based on the sponsor of this video, Hostinger, I'm gonna show you, let's say for instance, you had this converted to HTML and CSS and you wanted to host it on a website. I'm gonna show you a great solution for doing just that, which is the sponsor of this video. All right, now first, I want you to go right here, hostinger.com/design. And once you're there, you're going to see this page. Now, of course, depending on when you've watched this, this may be past the Black Friday deal. If that's the case, there's still gonna be a great deal in the YouTube description. So definitely check that out. And this process should be pretty much the same. I'm gonna click claim deal. Scrolls us down here to this premium web hosting option. All right, so this is the one that you're going to want to choose. So when you add it to cart, it's very important what happens next. You need to enter a coupon code. And I'm gonna show you that code right here. Of course, it's also mentioned in the description here. Have a coupon, we enter DesignCourse right there. We're gonna hit apply and you'll see that it will change our price right here as well. Of course, you could choose the different way you pay if you want them to do monthly and all that good stuff as well. So go ahead and sign up and create your account. And after that, we'll then go ahead and shift our focus towards a domain registration and deployment of a website. Okay, so here we are. After you create your account, you're gonna wanna log in, and I have a free domain that I can use. Now, domains are dirt cheap, so I'm gonna show you the process of just creating a domain name. It's very super simple for those of you who might be a beginner. Simply, you need to put in a domain name and it needs to be available. So you're gonna find out a lot of the times, whatever you want initially is not gonna be available. I wanna make sure mine's available, so I'm gonna call this My Awesome Site 521. That better be available as a .com, and right here is where you change the domain extension. So check availability, that is available. So I'm gonna claim that domain, and in a second, it's going to be ours essentially, and then we can go ahead and click setup for the web hosting option. So choose an option here. Where's the country? I live in the United States of America. I'm gonna hit next. Then you have to just fill in your address information, which I'll do off screen. It's now being registered after I've inputted the necessary information. All right, and I'm gonna hit continue. And then we can also add whois privacy, which is actually free. Awesome stuff. That means if somebody tries to look up who owns the website, it's not gonna show your personal information. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead back to home, and under our site, or rather under premium web hosting, we're gonna click setup. And this is so simple, I haven't even done this before. I know it's going to be simple. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and click start now. Who are you creating this website for? It's gonna be myself. Who is creating the website? I'm building it myself. And what type of website do you want to build? We'll just say this is a portfolio. Do you need help building? No thanks, we are pros. We can do this ourselves. All right, so create or migrate a website. So we're gonna go ahead and just create one. And hosting your website builder, no thanks. We're gonna select other. Additionally, search an application. So now this is pretty cool. If you use some sort of like app that you need or whatever, you can do that. For us, we're gonna click skip here at the bottom, create an empty website. choose your domain. So that's why we created the domain first, so that we could tie it to this particular hosting plan. All right, finish setup. Look how simple this is. I mean, I'm just breezed through this. There was no speeding up of the video. And momentarily it's going to be ready, probably to the point at which we can load up our website in the actual browser and probably see like a template that they create. So it's going to go ahead and it's creating basically the entire the folder structure and setting up the dev environment and the web hosting plan, essentially getting it all ready to rock. All right, so we can actually view our website now. If I click view website, it'll open it up. And here we are, my awesome site 521. We're all set to go. So now, at this point, we can go to manage site from the control panel. Now, when it comes to deployment of a website, there's a lot of different ways to deploy a website. I'm going to show you essentially one such way. So if you go over here to website, you'll see that we have the option to import website. Now, this is kind of the old school approach. You can just upload a zip file of your website's contents and then just choose file. You'll be able to import it that way. Now, a more modern approach is to use what's called Git or GitHub. So if we go to advanced over here, and let me move my head a little bit out of the way, we will see that we have Git right here, all right? So for Git, we can either create a new repo, or you can deploy the application directly from a public GitHub repository. So for us, what we want to do is just go to GitHub. You're going to want to create an account at GitHub, and I'm going to create a new repo right here. I'm going to name it My Awesome Site, and it's going to be public. Create a new repo, and in a second, it's going to tell us kind of how to initialize this and get it ready in the folder of that essentially houses our website files. So what I want to do is we're going to copy this, and then we're going to go over, I have Visual Studio Code open. This is a fictional project. It's an HTML CSS project that's from my CSS course. If I open with live server, this is what it is. So it's a fully responsive design. It's basically like a home page, a landing page of some sort. All right, so what if my goal is to get this on that domain that we just registered. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to view, and then we're going to choose terminal. So it's going to open it up in our current folder, which is kind of a very long name. I'm going to Control B, get rid of that sidebar over here. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and just right click to put git init. All right, so now it's initialized it. And then if we go back, I'm just going to follow the steps here. All right, I'm going to say, instead of git add readme, we're going to say git add period, which means git add all. All right, so git add period. After that, we're going to go ahead and say git commit -m, put a comment. We'll say first commit. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and say git branch -m main. And I'm just going through all of the steps, by the way. That's on the other monitor. And then we're going to go ahead and copy and paste the next step. We simply right click here on Windows at least to paste. And then we're going to go ahead git push -u origin main. Now at this point, you're going to see some stuff come up. And if we go back to our GitHub repo and I drag this over, and we refresh, you're going to see all of our website files that were there that are essentially in this project folder that was over here. So we're going to go ahead and copy just this portion of the GitHub repo address. We're going to paste it in here. We're going to make the branch name main, not master, and then leave the directory empty and hit create. All right. So GitHub repository stored successfully. So let's click here on deploy. Let's hit yes. And we're going to go back to the website, which is My Awesome Site 521. And there you go. It is 100% there in all of its responsive glory and ready to rock. Super, super simple, obviously, to deploy a website. with Hostinger, and I definitely advise you to check out the deals. Currently, at the time of uploading this, they have a Black Friday deal. It would be insane not to take advantage of that. However, if you're watching this after that certain point in time, you can definitely take advantage of good coupons, the DesignCourse coupon, in which you can get a good amount off for a very good hosting plan. All right, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to subscribe. Check out DesignCourse.com, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.